Very glad that you could join us today. My name is Paula Newcomb, and I'm the Northeast Regional Coordinator of the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I will be the host and question moderator for today's webinar, Looking to the Cloud Using Google's G Suite at Your Library, presented by Devin Henderson. She is the Marketing and Web Services person at the Huntington City Township Public Library, and we are presenting from, a little bit dreary Huntington today because of the weather. But at least we don't have ice coming down on us in sheets. Anyway, okay, a few housekeeping items before we start. If you are having sound issues during the webinar, please see the sound issues box just below the chat box. If there is a global sound issue, we will announce it in the chat box. But if you're unable to resolve the sound issue you are experiencing, we are recording the webinar and you can watch it offline after it is ended. Again, if there is a global sound issue, we will make an announcement in this chat box. If you have a question, just type it in the chat box on the upper left side of the screen. What we're going to do is hold off questions till answering the questions till about 10:40. We're going to have Devin go through her whole presentation, but please go ahead and put your questions in there and then we'll go back and get them. So we're going to have plenty of time at the end for your questions. Today's session is worth 1 TLEU and your certificate will be available for download at the end of the webinar. If you're watching an archived recording of this presentation, information on how to obtain your LEU is in the video's description in YouTube. Also, today's webinar will be recorded and archived. After the webinar has been transcribed, it will be available on the Indiana State Library's Archive Webinars page. And just a reminder, for weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to the Indiana State Library's e-newsletter, The Wednesday Word, and check our continuing education website for other professional development opportunities. Okay, we'll get started, and I am now happy to turn the presentation over to Devin.
Hello, my name is Devin Henderson, and I will be doing today's presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. All right, so welcome everyone. I will be doing Looking to the Cloud using Google's G Suite at your library. There will be a short presentation at the beginning, and then we're going to get into Google Drive, into docs, sheets, slides, things like that. There are interactive components, but if you are not participating in the interactive side of this, that's okay. I will be sharing my screen for the entire presentation, so you will be able to kind of see as other people interact and still get most of the benefit from it. So first we're going to cover what exactly G Suite is. So if you're familiar with Microsoft Office, this is kind of Google's version. It's really comparable to Office 365. It's just online versions of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, except they're called Docs, Sheets, and Slides. It is an entire app ecosystem, so it has email, it has the productivity software, much like what Apple or Microsoft offer. It does also include Google Drive, which is kind of like a thumb drive. It's online storage, and you can store your docs, sheets, and slides in there, but you can also store photos, other files. You can back up folders from your computer. You have a lot of options for online storage. And it also includes Gmail as the email platform and Google Calendar. So these are all things that you can get that when you have a Gmail account for free, but when you have G Suite as a paid platform, it is kind of a souped up version. You get more storage space, and you also get the company network benefits like you get if you have an Exchange server. You have a directory of your domain contacts, all of those kind of features. You can tell who is a staff person. You get to share more easily amongst your own network, things like that. What's really nice about G Suite is that it is heavily based around collaboration. It is an entirely web-based platform, and its core component is having multiple people in editing things at the same time, easily and flawlessly. And it is a paid professional level product, so Google offers a lot of free services, but they do have a paid platform called G Suite. And why you should use it? Well, because if you're a library, you don't have to pay for it. It is completely free. It's part of something called Google for Nonprofits. So what they essentially do is give you G Suite for Business at $0 a month. So it's everything that anybody who pays for the platform gets, but because we are a library, we get it for free. So with that, you get, a whole suite of powerful products. You get to use, all the professional level versions of Docs, Sheets, Slides, Google Drive, things like that. It's really nice for reducing your IT support load. So it's not, one fewer server you have to maintain in your server room. You don't have to deal with updates, not pushing out features across all of the different accounts, all of those things that at least in Huntington we were dealing with when we had our own Exchange server. It just completely alleviated all of those issues. It has a 99.9% uptime, so it just makes things really, really easy. Because it's web-based, it works anywhere, so you can be hopping on another computer out at a hotel or anywhere. You can get right to your files. There's no software to install. I mean, there is software you can install that lets you sync back and forth with your computer, but none of it is necessary for using any of the features. Where if you have Office 365, you have added benefits if you do install Word, Excel, PowerPoint as software. Google's everything is based completely around being online in a web browser. It's also really easy to use. It doesn't have 100% of the features that Office has. It just kind of takes the core features that most people use on a daily basis, and that's what it presents. So if you do need the really advanced features, like we still use Excel to deal with some XML reports from our ILS, there are situations where it won't necessarily have everything you need, but for the most part, if you're just really using word processor, spreadsheets with formulas, really the probably 80% of most of Word's features or Excel's features, it will be more than enough. It also has amazing collaboration support, so we're gonna get to do that later, and I'm very excited because when I did this with my coworkers, they were excited, and at different ILF presentations, this is the really fun part. So that's part of the interactive component later, but it supports having multiple people in the same file at the same time making edits. None of the I'm going to go in there and add some data to the spreadsheet. I need everybody to close out of it. None of that exists with the G Suite platform, so it's very, very nice in that regard. And did we mention it's free for libraries? So in Huntington, just kind of a quick background on how we adopted it. In 2013, we were officially fed up with hosting our own Exchange server. It was just giving us tons of trouble. We would have a Microsoft update push out to the network, and it would bork something on our Exchange server, or we'd come in and it just turned off in the middle of the night, came back on. It just was a lot of IT load when we just needed email. And so at the time, we decided it was worth it to swap to paid G Suite. We were actually paying for it, $5 a user a month, and it was worth it enough for us, and it saved us enough money over time that was cheaper than what we were putting out in hardware maintenance for our own server. And because we had it, we just adopted Gmail essentially. But we had access to Docs and Sheets and things, so here and there we would start using it. Instead of typing our meeting notes in Word, we would type them in Docs, and then we would just share them out with everybody. We started moving our program statistics to Sheets, things like that. So it was kind of really an organic growth for us, just kind of happened. And then in 2017, we were really kickstarting a technology training initiative for our staff, a tech competencies program. So I was going around trying to find training for G Suite, and I found that Google for Nonprofits exists and had existed the entire time we were paying for it. So I had a little moment to myself and then presented it to our director, and we got on the Google for Nonprofits platform and immediately stopped having to pay for it. And by mid-2018, this year, we're using it for everything. Short of those really fringe cases where we need some of the advanced features of Excel, we are not really using the Office platform anymore. We've fully adopted G Suite across the entire library, including our part-time circulation staff. That's how far it's gone. Okay, so we are going to get into the demonstration aspect of this. So if you want to follow along, if you have a second computer that you're using to participate, if we go into the G Suite Drive, now I added everybody who had signed up through the web form as of about 10:30 last night. So if you haven't been able to make it in yet, feel free to just follow along and I can add you after the presentation. And then that way you can get in. Everybody who is in here has full editing rights to all of these files. It's really meant to be a collaborative drive where you can come in here, play around, create things, open stuff, see what's in here. But we're going to cover a couple of specific documents in here so that we can touch on specific features. First, I am going to cover the user interface of Drive in general. So if you've used Google Drive before, being inside of what is called a team drive might look a little different. So when you get the paid G Suite, since we technically do have it, we just pay $0. It is the paid version and it comes with all of the features that get pushed out to the paid versions. So you get something called a team drive. And what that does is allow you to have, in addition to your own My Drive that is tied to your specific Google account, team drives are network based. They go across your entire G Suite network and you can create them, a bunch of them, for any sort of subjects you want. So to show some of ours, we have a circulation goal that we're trying to meet this year. So we have a team drive for that committee. We have the one that I created for this presentation. Some of our others, we have one for just all of our IT documentation. I have a marketing one where I store all of my files and things. So you can really create team drives as a way. Maybe you have local network drives or shared drives that you use to store your files. You can really replicate that same setup using team drives. And we have probably about 10 right now that I'm a member of. There are other ones, like we have an administration one that our director and assistant directors are in. Other committees I'm not involved in. You can really create them and share them with the people that are involved, and it's permissions across the board. So it's just, you can do everything in bulk. You can set a wide variety of permission levels. If I go in here to the add members box, you can see these are all the different levels that you can set. A manager has full editing control. The content manager can add, edit, move, and delete files. A contributor can just add and edit but not delete. Very handy, and Google only added this within the last couple of weeks, so I was very happy. This way you can have people contribute but not maybe delete things accidentally. You can have people who can just comment, so they can get into files and comment on things but not modify anything. And then you can just have kind of a read-only viewer permission setting. So it gives you a lot of control over what people can do within the drive, which is nice, and you can do it in bulk instead of having to do it on a per file basis. On the sidebar here below where the drives are, we do also have the new button here that, where you can create your files. But below the different drives, you have a shared with me. You can access, if you're especially sharing across your network, but anybody with a Gmail account, you can share files and they're all going to be linked right in here. You have your recent files, so what you've been working on, created, edited, has been shared with you recently. That will all be here. And if you've used Gmail before, or really any email platform that allows you to star or flag items, you can do that in Google Drive as well. So if you have certain things like your timesheet, like we have our timesheet in Google Sheets, I have that starred. You can, those quick items that you need to get to on a constant basis or are very important for a short time, you can star them. And then you also have a trash. It also lets you know how you're doing on storage. So the way storage works in Google Drive is if you have a free Gmail, it's 15 gigabytes of storage. If you have a paid plan, which is technically us as libraries, you get 30 gigabytes of storage. What's a nifty little feature that we are taking advantage of for as long as we can is that team drives have no storage limit. You can, well, technically I think you're limited to 250,000 files, and that is it. It does not count docs, sheets, slides, anything that is kind of a Google official file format. Those don't count as files. So it's 250,000 pictures you've uploaded, or Word documents you've uploaded but not converted to a doc, because you can convert past files as well, which is a nice feature for migrating over if you choose to go with G Suite. It doesn't count any of those. There's no file limit, no size limit, anything like that. It's just you've got a cap of number of files. So it's a really great way to kind of offload. Maybe if you have some external drives you share a lot of your files on and you're worried, well, 30 gigabytes doesn't get us very far if we're trying to put everything we have on them. But team drives do not have a limit at this time. I say at this time because it is Google. They do have a little bit of a history of changing things with very short notice, so it might change in the future. It's been this way the entire time team drives have existed. They haven't changed the feature at all. So at least for now, I think they're still trying to develop the platform and they're just not messing with it. But if you do, if they do take it away in the future, you have options to upgrade storage, and they are still much cheaper than running your own servers, which is nice. It's, a couple bucks for 100 gigabytes. It's really nice. Up here at the top, we have, it tells you what team drive you're in. You can set themes, so it's easy to visually distinguish which team drive you're in. It tells you how many members are in it. You can add members. You have Google's search box. It wouldn't be a Google product if you couldn't search. So if you click in here, you have options. You can really quickly just drill down by file type. You can also hit the drop down arrow, and it really lets you break down how you want to search for things, whether you're the owner or somebody else is, or a specific person, a specific location. You have lots of options for finding what you're looking for, which is nice. That's a benefit of a Google product, is that the search is very, very fleshed out, which makes it very easy to find what you need. You have like a little help document spot, as well as settings. You can access all of your other products in the G Suite platform. You can have some notifications. If, say, you've been tagged in a comment or anything like that, it'll show up here. And then down here, you have your file list. So this shows you everything. It should look really familiar if you're used to like Windows or Mac-based operating systems. It's just a straight up list of your folders and your files. The ones with the blue symbol, these are docs. This is a slide, and this is a PDF. So it has little symbols that tell you the type of file it is, just like you would in Windows or on a Mac. And you also have a card view if you want something a bit more visual. This can kind of give you a preview of what the file looks like. Especially for presentations, it's very helpful. Or if you've got a folder where you're storing a lot of photos, it can be really handy to find things quickly that way. And then next to that, you have the information pane. And this just kind of tells you some details of what's happened, file history for the entire drive. So it kind of has an activity stream for you, so you can see the changes that have been made recently, as well as details, members, things like that. And if you click specific items, then you can get details on that specific file as well, when it was modified, created, things like that. And you can see here, this is a Google Doc. So storage used, 0 bytes, Google Docs are free. So anything you create using Docs, Sheets, Slides, Google Forms, Google Sites, things like that, those do not count towards your storage limit, which is really nice as well. Helps make that 30 gigabytes go a bit further in your personal drive. All right, so now we're going to get into some of the files. First up, we're going to go into Docs. So if you want to follow along with this, it's called the Program Planning Form. It is in the Sample Files folder, and then in the Huntington Samples here. And it should be down here at the bottom if it's set to default sort. It's called the Program Planning Form, if you want to be in the same documents that we are in the presentation. So now that we're inside of a document, you can kind of see what this looks like from the editing side. This is what it looks like when you create something, you're typing, you're working with specific files. So up here it tells you it's a doc. You have your file name. You can star it from here, and you can also reorganize where it is. Oh, Google's not very happy with me today, but you can normally see a list of where it's at in your drive, and you can rearrange it from there. Below that, you kind of have your standard menu. It's not the most groundbreaking user interface. They wanted to stick with something that is familiar for most people. It should look decently like a simplified version of the ribbon, a very simplified version. But you have some of your drop downs, file, edit, view, kind of the standard insert. What's nice is you can insert right from Google Drive or Google Photos. It really ties in with the entire platform as a whole. So if you store all of your stuff in Google Drive, it makes it a lot easier to add it to different files. You can do formatting, all of the kind of menu items you expect when working with a document creation tool. And you can kind of hover over them. If you're in the document, you can see what some of these different ones are. It lets you, create specific default styles for things, which is nice. I was able to create some that we use library-wide that are kind of towards our branding, which is nice. You can choose your fonts, your size, kind of all the stuff you expect. Paragraph alignment, whether it's a list, all of that. It even integrates on the side. If you use Google Calendar, you can see your calendar in the sidebar. I can see my Google Calendar right from within a doc. If I have a meeting coming up and I just want to keep an eye on where I'm at, you can get to Google Keep if you use that, which is kind of like, if you're not familiar with Google Keep, it's an app that you can use to quickly jot down notes. It's kind of like having sticky notes in your pocket. It has a web version. It's really beneficial if you use it on a smartphone. It's a way that you can snap pictures, take notes, things like that, and then you can quickly drag them into documents that you're working on, which is nice. And you can get to Google Tasks as well. So this is a document that we have used for a long time at the library. We only recently stopped using it, and that's how we plan all of our programs. So it was that you would, we have it saved as a template. What you can do in G Suite, you can have network-wide templates. So documents that people need to use often, you can stick them in there. People can quickly get to them by clicking here on the Docs Home, which we'll do once we're finished with this file. And they would type out the information that they needed to plan the program. It would be submitted to their supervisor. So you can see that you can create a pretty complex layout in Google Docs, a bit more than maybe the user interface suggests you can do, but you can really kind of do whatever you like. It has a lot of features built in. And then up here too, while we're in here, all of these little symbols up here show all the people who are viewing the doc at the same time as you. So if it's like in full color, it looks like it's really colorful, that means they're here right now. It will actually fade it out. If somebody, say it's open in a tab, but it's not the tab they're viewing, you can see that somebody has it open in the background, which is really, really nice if you're all trying to collaborate on something at the same time. All of these little lines here, these actually are where people's cursors are that are in the document right now, which is really neat. It's just fantastic for in the moment, at the same time collaboration. And you can even comment on things. So if you're all working on a document together and you're wanting to chat and make suggestions and things like that, you can highlight text, you can hit the little comment button, and it links a comment right with the text that you had selected, just like Word does. It's a bit simpler of a version of it, but you can even tag your coworkers with it too, which is nice. And there is even a little chat. It is cool, Kimberly. So if you have a whole bunch of people in at the same time and you don't want to just keep commenting back and forth, you can see that everybody you would be commenting to anyway is already in the file. You can just open it up and it's a live chat right within the file. So it's just really, really focused on collaboration, which is why we made the change and why we love it. And then up here, you have, this was new as of like Wednesday, but you can actually see, now there's an activity dashboard. So you can see who has viewed it at what time, viewer trends. It might be having a mild heart attack because it's a lot happening right now. But yeah, so you can see who's viewed it within the last hour. I can even view it based on my network. Same with the viewer trends. It gives you a little bit of a chart on when you've had views on your files. And you can also change some of the settings. So this is really new. Google's been rolling out some new features within the last couple of weeks, which has kind of thrown my presentation a little haywire, but I'm doing my best to add them in as they come because they're really beneficial. And then from here, you can just also see where comments are throughout the document, any notifications, things like that. and the share option. So this share button, oh, it might be having a bit of a moment, but this is where you go to share it with your coworkers. If it's not in a team drive, maybe it's in your personal drive, and you just have one person you want to share something with or a couple of people, you can do all of that from within the share option here. I don't think it's very happy with me right now. We'll try again later. All right, so that is Docs. Oh, and one more thing right here where it says, all changes saved in Drive. This is actually where you can go and you can see version history. So Google also does support very strong Google or document versioning for the different files. So one aspect of the whole platform is that there is no save button. It saves automatically, it makes changes automatically, because otherwise collaboration would be very difficult. But if you click this, so say maybe somebody gets in here, sets their mug down on their keyboard, which might involve another conversation at a later time about respecting technology, but say that happens and deletes a whole document you've all been working on. You can actually click this and you can see different version history. So, say I wanted to see what this change was, I can go here, I can see, I can hit restore. Maybe I want to go further back and further back and further back. You can see where all of the different file versions happened, which is really, really nice. And then you can just get out of it by hitting back. You can even just print from here. So if you like the version you have, but you want to print the old version for posterity, you can do that too. It's very, very nice. Even tallies how many edits have been made. So that's kind of a way that you can stay safe when you've got instant saving, instant changes. You can always make sure that if at one point in time the document was the way you wanted it, you can get back to that, which is nice and has been used multiple times at our library. Okay, so next we're going to go to Sheets. So if you would like to follow along with this file, this is the one that's going to be heavily interactive. So you will want to go back to the main drive here and then go to Practice Docs and the Test Program Statistics file, which I already have open over here. So I'm going to go over to that. And it should look like this. So now we can see that people are joining us in the file, which is really, really nice. This is a direct copy of a file that we use to track attendance, cost, time spent, things like that on our various programs that we do. And it's set up with some basic formula that, if you put something in a box, it'll start doing some tallying, things like that. Just simple stuff to make actually counting easier. What I would like everyone to do is when you get in here, which you'll see that the user interface is very similar, but it just adds in some commands that are specific to a spreadsheet software. If you would like to participate, if you could pick one of the rows down here after 8 or lower and start kind of putting in a fake program. Just make something up, or maybe something that you did or do, maybe kind of fill it out. What we're going to do is we're going to watch the changes live. As people edit, as people make changes, we're going to see exactly how well Google handles collaborating in the same document at the same time. And even if you just want to, type gibberish in boxes, that's great, because, we're just going to watch the data roll in. So you can see all of these little boxes here. They're all different colors. These are all different people working in the same document at the same time. This is what swayed us to go to Google. Support is amazing. I mean, we have, it looks like 15 people in here at once, a whole bunch of boxes. People are all over the place, making changes, making edits, all real time, all at the same time. None of this, well, I need to make changes, so I'll go in and I'll close out of it. Oops, but I forgot, I went to lunch. Oh, my car broke down, I'm out for the rest of the day, and everybody else is stuck because the file's open on your computer, nobody else can get to it. None of that happens with the Google platform. So you can all be in here, all be making changes at the same time. It's really, really, really nice. So we'll just hang out here for a bit and watch the show, and we can kind of see just what it can handle. You can add pictures, you can do all sorts of things. It got really wild during a previous session I did for an ILF conference. Try things out. Go up into insert and add things. Change colors and fonts and whatever you like to do. Just go crazy. See if I can get as many of these in the to show as I can. So you can really see just how well this platform handles multiple people editing things at the same time. And this was something that when we signed up, we just wanted Gmail. But once we saw that the platform could do this, our wheels started spinning. And so this sheet is a prime example of the type of file that we use to have everything in here together. Oh, thank you. Oh, Paula. If you said otherwise, you're a little too close. It might be dangerous. But you can all, be in here at the same time if you've got multiple librarians who are working on things together, or separately. You've got programs going on, and it's just whenever it's good for people to hop in and add in their statistics and their budget information and things like that. You don't have to wait on anybody else. It's just really, really nice. Woohoo! Yes. So if you hit down here, I have to move our little command box for a minute. There's a little explore option down here. They also make it very, very easy to just really quickly throw in some charts and graphs and things. It might be freaking out now because we have a wild variety of files in here, or content in different cells. But if you've got kind of a standard spreadsheet where you've got a column on the left that's one thing, and you've got a row across the top that's another type of data, and you're just putting consistent data in, it will give you a lot of options for just really quickly throwing some charts together. Pie charts, bar charts, line graphs, anything like that. You can just drag and drop them right in. It makes it really nice when all you want is, a quick statistic on how many are children's programs, how many are adult, how many are all ages, things like that, which has been really beneficial for us. None of the messing around with trying to pick your data sources and all of that. It oftentimes will suggest exactly what you need, which is really handy. All right. So that is Sheets. It's very similar to Excel. Excel does have a whole lot more options than Sheets does, but this type of document where you're just really trying to track things together, collaborate, things like that, it works really, really well. It has a ton of function support. Most of your Excel commands can carry over. I haven't run into anything yet. I don't use it in an advanced level, but at a generally pretty moderate level of commands and different things, it supports everything you can imagine. You can create filters, and you can sort, and you can do data validation, and lots of different options. It is really pretty powerful. Excel is kind of in a league of its own, but if you don't use some of those really advanced features, I would imagine that Sheets is perfectly fine for you. Okay, so we're going to go, actually I will show you one more sheet that we use pretty heavily. We do have a technology training initiative that we train staff on using technology so we can help patrons. And we actually put all of our skill sheets here in Sheets. So it's just like a checklist where people will fill out their name, the date, and then we use gurus, or the people who test out others of skills. And it's just a little simple checklist, but we have it set up so that when you go to hit print, which let's see if it will show correctly if I do that, it just prints like a checklist. So it's really easy to set up. You can really just kind of do whatever you want. Even this, it kind of looks like a document, but we wanted it to be a little easier to set up checkboxes. So we decided to do it in Sheets. We have these for about 45 different pieces of technology, but it makes it super easy to just print and test out of things, especially since being able to print them, then that way you can use the computer for the actual skill test. All right, so we're going to go on to slides very quickly. If you go back to the main drive, if you want to participate, if you want to keep playing around in Sheets, feel free. But it is under Sample Files, Huntington Samples, and I have a GTD Staff in-Service presentation here, which I already have open, so I'm just going to pull that up. And Slides is their version of PowerPoint. I would say this is probably the most different from Office's counterpoint. PowerPoint is incredibly powerful, and Slides does a great job. but it has kind of the biggest gap in features. But I would argue that most libraries probably don't need those super, super advanced PowerPoint features. If you're just doing some nice presentations to demonstrate things, this is one that I did for a staff in-service a couple of years ago on a productivity method. If you haven't read this book, it's fantastic. But you can see you can create some really nice looking slides, and Google actually rolled out supporting guides, which if you've used anything like Illustrator or InDesign by Adobe for creating documents, they actually rolled out the ability to have your lining guides in slides as well. So this has actually benefited us very well because we do actually use slides to create desk signs. Doesn't seem like something you would think of initially, but it works very, very well. If you just need to create, and here I'm opening one that we have made, which is also in that sample, Huntington Samples folder. That just, we're closed for Easter. Really simple, pull a picture in, put some text on it, logo, done. These type of signs we use all the time. We can just throw them together, and I've actually done some classes for our staff to train them how to do it too, because it is so much easier than trying to navigate Publisher or any of those more complicated softwares. I mean, you can use something like Canva. I would say it's about equal in the difficulty level of Canva. So it's really great if you're just kind of wanting to teach one set of things to your staff, or if you just really want to learn one set of things. These are all, docs, sheets, slides. They're all so similar that when you learn one, you've learned most of the rest of them. And it just, it can really be much less stressful than having this disparate gathering of tools that you use that are all 100% different from each other. All right. So, and that's slides. I also did the presentation I was doing at the beginning in there as well. This is all in slides. I use it for almost everything just because it's so convenient when you're going to present somewhere or do a conference session or anything like that. You just get on the internet and you can get to your presentation. No making sure the software is installed, it's the right version, dealing with all of the different font issues you might have. Everything is just built right in. It's just so much simpler. All right, so I wanted to leave enough time that we can open the floor for questions, that we can go back and demonstrate certain things. So we're going to start going through some of the questions that have been submitted so far.
There was one from Barb earlier. She said, would small libraries find it useful? They have like 2 to 3 staff members in some of our smaller ones. I kind of answered a little bit saying that it would help with money costs, but do you see anything else?
I have found that, we're kind of a small to mid-size, well, we have 35 employees, but we do have a lot of staff who are super part-time, 8 to 12 hours just at the desk, and it is a much easier interface. So I think from that aspect alone, unless everybody who's already working at your library is really familiar with Office, it's much less intimidating to learn. I have found that our staff, especially those who are really uncomfortable with technology, have taken to it a lot better than I would have thought. It's so much simpler. It's free. You don't have to do, especially if you don't have IT support at your library. We have had no maintenance on this whatsoever. It is so simple. Even the commands where you're setting up in the admin console, the different permissions levels, they are very simple. It's plain language. It's very, very easy. So especially if you don't have an IT department, or if it's just part of your job and you need to have time to do other things and support your platform, we have had to spend exactly 0 minutes supporting this. Once we set it up, it was off and running. It's super easy. So I think in that regard, yes, it would be very beneficial.
Kim asks, what do you use for more sensitive documents?
So we do use the G Suite platform for almost everything. We do keep Word document copies of our policies and things like that. But what we end up doing is there's a team drive for the really sensitive stuff that only the director and assistant directors have access to. I am our Google super admin. I set up our account. I have every permission that an account is possible to have. I cannot get into that team drive. It is limited just to those accounts. I have no control over it. I cannot get into it. So it's, for them at least, it's very, very secure.
I'm going to maybe put a couple of, Barb has a couple more. I'm trying to do these in order and I wrote them down in order. Barb said, would it be on patron computers? And I kind of answered earlier saying, well, you would only be adding the people you want to see it. So even though the patron computers have Google, they couldn't get to your team drive unless you added that certain person.
Correct. Yeah, it's based around once you set it's, you're kind of setting up your institution, and in that way, then you just add accounts. So it's like having Active Directory in Windows. If they don't have an account, they can't get into it.
Right.
So you can set things. There are permissions to share things. If anybody who has the link, they don't have to be in your network. They can access it. You can make public links that are searchable on Google. You have all of those options, but you have to specifically choose to do that on a per file basis. And you can't even share a team drive publicly yet. It has to be shared manually, account to account. So your patrons could go to drive.google.com, but they have no access to your own institutional network.
Okay. And then Kim asked while we were in the sheets, she said, do the formulas happen automatically?
Yeah, so if you go in, like if you're wanting to add in a formula, say I wanted to add up, like these are, if you can see my mouse here, all of these kind of tally things up. If I select one of those, you can see up here, you can see the formula. Like Excel, all you have to do is hit the equal sign. When you're typing in any cell, if I hit the equal sign here, it's going to start prompting me to do formula. So then you can pick the ones you want. If you hover over it, it kind of gives you a summary of them, and you can kind of pick what you need. And then once you do that, it's probably going to not be happy with my choice, but I'll do, this entire column. It's probably going to come back with what these aren't numbers, but as soon as I click out of it, it immediately starts applying the formula. And so yeah, it doesn't like it because these are X's and not numbers, but as soon as you start typing in there, you can start putting your formula in. As soon as you click out of it, it applies it.
Do you find you're using Drive more than a shared drive for your files now?
Yes. So we are exclusively moving everything off of our shared drive. Whether or not that's because Google is just so good, or because twice now we have had our domain controller server go down and we've lost files on our shared drive because the backups were failing before the stage where it would give us the notification they were failing. That, I think, has set it off more than anything. We have found that it is much more reliable. Google has their data backed up across hundreds of servers, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands across the world. So it would take like a global catastrophe for our data to be lost. Whereas twice now, in just the time that I have worked here, which is 7 years, but we have had our domain controller physical server go down, and with that went our shared drive, our primary shared drive, and with that, whatever files were created since our last successful backup. The last time we were able to save everything, the time before that we lost an entire summer reading program's worth of files. So we're a little scarred. So now we're really kind of moving everything to Drive, and it's taking it just fine. We've got team drives for all the different folders and sections we had on our shared drive. It's just a bit of a process. We have about 25 years worth of files that we need to migrate over, but it is our end goal to go that way 100%, and we've run into no issues so far.
How do you handle it if your internet is down, or are there any offline options?
So currently what you can do is you can save certain files for offline editing. You have to kind of do it manually, and especially if you have it open before the internet goes down. It is one downside to this whole platform, is it is dependent on an internet connection. The apps, if you use it on a tablet or a smartphone, those support offline mode a lot better than the web versions do. We actually have, we got them through TechSoup, we have some hotspots, and in an emergency situation, we use some of our hotspots if we're desperate. Usually our ILS is internet dependent as well. So, we're a SaaS library. So if the internet goes down, we're down in pretty much every way. So at that point, you know, we're a bit stuck. It's just one of the trade-offs that we agreed to when we decided that this was important for us. But it's the same thing too, if our network goes down locally or our domain server decides to take a nap and not wake up again, we're just as lost at that point. It's only happened a couple of times. Our internet is really, really reliable, and we do have some hotspots in an emergency situation, but we kind of just accept that. Unfortunately, that is one of the downsides, is it is pretty dependent on an internet connection.
And I know we've got lots of questions. If we don't happen to get everything answered, we will copy this chat and get the answers I'll send the answers out as well. Barb asked again, now this is, Barb, you might have to explain more. What do you mean when you say it would support our platform? I know they were asking questions as we were presenting, so you maybe explain that more, Barb.
Yeah, maybe specifically what the point in the presentation was.
Or we can get back to you later, either way. Or we'll switch to the next question. If you explain more, we'll get back to you. So how about the next one is, do you have any regrets in switching to G Suite?
Not really. I mean, at the time, Office 365 was just kind of getting started. So we really didn't have any options other than G Suite. At the time, it was Google Apps for having this online collaboration. And we liked Gmail, and most of us had a personal Gmail. So at the time, we were very happy with it. Now that Office 365 has really caught up in terms of online collaboration, maybe if we were making the decision now, it might factor into things, but we don't regret it, and we're not considering switching to Office 365. We really like how simple the platform is. We feel that we don't use most of what Word, Excel, PowerPoint have to offer, and the trade-off for our part-time staff or our staff who aren't as comfortable with technology, how much better they're able to take this on and learn this is worth it for us. So we're very happy. Sometimes, Google doesn't have the best reputation for privacy. Being in their paid platform, we're paying $0 a month, but it is the paid platform. They do have a different privacy policy for their paid customers than their free. So it is much more protective of your data. I highly recommend when you go to sign up that you read through it. Took me a couple of hours, but it's definitely worth it. You want to make sure you know what you're signing up for, but they are very strong on data protection if you're giving them money, which is probably not surprising to most people, but it is worth mentioning that it is a different privacy policy. But we're very happy with it so far.
This is another great question. Would you still need Microsoft Office for patron computers, for the public ones?
Yes, so we still do have Office on our public computers because people will come in all the time with thumb drives or different things. Well, if they come in with thumb drives, they're out of luck because we don't let them plug them in. But they'll come in and they've got stuff in their email that they need to print off that are Word documents. You can convert things in the platform. If you want it to be a doc instead of a Word document, you can convert it and Google will switch it over. But you have to have a Gmail account. So if patrons don't have a Gmail account, they would have to create one and you'd have to convert it. So we still have Office on all of our computers, in addition to a whole bunch of web browsers and different things. But so if they come in and they've got Drive and they want to use it, that's great. But if they've got Office documents, it's definitely not worth the hassle of creating accounts and things just to do this, because you cannot use any of this without a Google account. So that's a factor as well.
Another one, can you sync your Drive to your desktop the way you can have a Dropbox folder on your computer that syncs to your cloud Dropbox account?
Yes. So there's something called Google File Sync, and what that does is essentially the same thing. You are able to sync your Drive and your team drives to your computer and vice versa. So that way you can kind of keep files and sync back and forth. It's very handy if you're really used to browsing files on your computer. You can just stick them right next to each other. The computer that I'm using right now is one of our LSTA laptops, so it doesn't have it installed, but on my personal work computer, I have it installed. I save all of my design files. I use Adobe Creative Suite for our newsletter and different things like that. And I save all of them to Google Drive right from within that software because I can just find my Google folders just like you would Dropbox. on my computer, save it there, it syncs it to Google Drive, everything is happy. It works very, very well.
Okay, back to sheets. So with the formula question. Okay, so you have to apply a formula. That's how the graphs are created then?
Not always. So it will be able to tell, like if you have a really basic spreadsheet that maybe you've got months down the side and then numbers in the next column for how many programs you had that month, it will actually be able to suggest to you, it can extrapolate that data and give you some options right away without having to create any formula for just kind of basic charts. If it's something like this, where it's much more complex and the columns and the rows have different meanings, then you might have to do a formula so it has something to go off of. But if it's just really straightforward, you've got categories on one side, you've got something across the top, and it's consistent through the whole spreadsheet, it will give you a whole bunch of different suggestions without having to type any sort of formula.
These have been amazing questions. Did you find it easy to have your staff initially buy into G Suite?
Well, at first, yes. When we were initially signing up, we were just using it for Gmail. So, and actually at the time, when we had our own Exchange server, not everybody had an email. It was so much of a pain to maintain and different things like that, that it was only full-time staff who had email. And part of the reason we wanted to change was we wanted every single employee, no matter how many hours you work, even our interns when they come in the summer, they would get an email. And so that it was easy to communicate. We needed one way to communicate. So people were excited they were going to finally get an email. So they were on board with that. Once we started kind of enforcing it, there's always a little bit of pushback on learning something new, but it's kind of come with our technology training initiative. So it's just kind of like a small part of a bigger, change. And I think people are actually finding it easier than they thought once they get into it, because they've got the mentality that I have to learn this technology. This is just one of the many things I have to learn. And actually, we've, seen great success. We have some employees who have been here for decades, work very, very part-time, normally don't do anything on a computer at all. And I'm getting notices that they're asking for a calendar, event, so that they know that they've got to attend a meeting, or they're asking if somebody's going to put the notes in a doc. I mean, it's been a massive change. So I am actually very surprised at how well it's going, but I'm not going to complain.
We've also had great comments from Jesse and also Susie. Another question back here from Kim: can you access files via phone or tablet?
Yes, so there are apps for all of these different versions of Drive. So there's a Drive app that's just kind of like a file browser. You can get to your stuff. There is also a Docs app, a Sheets app, a Slides app, a Google Calendar app, a Google Keep app, a Google Tasks app. They all have their own individual apps. You can access all of the files within Drive, and then, say you're in the Drive app and you want to open a doc, if you just tap it in there, it swings it right over to the Docs app and opens it for you. They're really seamless. They work really well together. Gmail, there's a Gmail app. They all work really, really well and really in sync with each other. They're fantastic apps.
Is your library using Gmail for your domain staff email?
Yes. So our entire domain email is on Gmail, and that was the very first thing we actually set up. So it has been that way since 2013, so for 5 years.
This is what I'm sure what they did a little bit ago. Is there a way to merge a current email account from Microsoft Outlook into a Gmail account, or would you be starting from scratch with an entirely new email address for each?
Yes, so they have a migration tool that you can use. We used it 5 years ago, so it might have changed or be more current. I mean, it worked great for us. Essentially, what it does is when you're making the change over from a Microsoft account, you have to make some DNS changes. So especially if you have your domain through the state library, if it's a .lib.in.us address, you just have to redirect where the mail is going, and then they have a migration tool that will sync the email in your Microsoft account over to your new Gmail account. So you're not going to be starting without your inbox, without your saved messages, anything like that. It will sync them right over. At least it did 5 years ago. I would hope that they haven't taken that feature out. And it worked great. It took a couple of hours for the whole change to take effect. So you'd want to do it at a time where you're not expecting to get too many emails, because it's going to bounce back that it's an inactive address during the change. But once we were up and running, we had our archive of our old email from our Exchange server in our accounts. Everything was great.
All right. Again, you know what? We've got 5 minutes. I think we're going to stop the recording, but we're going to stay on. So next we're going to put up the share pod and then keep asking questions if you want to, or send Devin an email or myself an email. Let's see. Oh, got the wrong one up. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Oh, here it goes. There you go. So we've got the LEU at the top, and also she included a PDF for information on signing up for Google for Nonprofits. We've got the survey link as well, and her email's at the bottom.
Yes, and I will actually go, am I still sharing my screen? I think I'm still sharing my screen.
I think this is what's sharing right now.
Oh, okay. In the drive, if you go back to the main folder of the drive, I do have that document about signing up in there as well as a doc and as a PDF. And so it breaks down, it's got the link to the TechSoup page, and everything is authenticated through TechSoup. So if you want to sign up for G Suite with your library, you have to be validated on TechSoup, but then it just authenticates through them. It's a really straightforward process. And then it's got links to their Google for Nonprofits homepage. There's a YouTube channel where they do different videos on specifically using the platform with a nonprofit, because you do get other things like money towards AdWords and Google Maps paid integrations. You get them for free. So you get a lot of other features outside of just docs, sheets, slides, the kind of productivity platform. So it walks through that. It also has a help page that's specifically for using it as a nonprofit, maybe some of the specific settings and things like that that are unique to this platform. So I've got links in there. It's a PDF and a doc, so feel free to open that up and read through it and print it and different things like that.
Yeah, and I'll be reaching out to everybody, so if you can't get something, I can always send it to you. Something invariably happens with technology, right? So,
yep.
But we'll make it work somehow. So definitely for everybody, it's a totally different way to think about how you work at your library. So could be for everybody, maybe it's not for some, just something to think about.
Oh, yes, and I see that there's maybe some requests for our skills checklists. We are more than happy to share all of the ones we have made.
I forgot that. Thank you.
We have spent 2 years putting these things together, and I recommend highly the webinar on Monday with Catherine from Carmel Clay. We presented at ILF together. Carmel Clay, she put together a fantastic presentation, so it'll be a fantastic webinar. And then I am more than happy I'll just stick them in this drive, and then you can access them too. We have quite a few of them